Hello and welcome back to the S.H.E Gallery show. You are here with us for season 4 with Joy Wright. Thank you for being with us, Joy.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you. Now this is the third time that Joy is with S.H.E Gallery and we hope that she'll stay. The first time that we had the pleasure of working with Joy was in April when she joined us for an event that we had with Mujeres Latinas en Acción in dedication to Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And she came out from the Faces and Voices project, which is another project that she was involved with, reading poetry. And then she came out and she helped us. And then we invited her back to our fundraiser that we just had this past Saturday. If you were there, thank you for joining us. It was an awesome show. And Joy was with us back again. And we wanted to kind of just introduce Joy and talk about her background, the important, super important things that she's done as a human being and to her community and to her family. And we also wanted to reflect on her experiences with S.H.E Gallery. So one of the main things about Joy Wright, to me, has been her honesty, her raw truth. And it's like those disturbing truths that they're so beautiful that you're forced to just listen to them and take it in and really take it in. So we've noticed from your writings that you write a lot about your mother and your experiences. And we're just going to go into this conversation that we started off the first S.H.E Gallery show that we ever had here with CAN TV. If you will remember, we invited an organization called La Brocha. And La Brocha was a really special organization because they dedicated all that they did to the aging, to diseases of the aging that people don't really talk about or deal with. And they're important because all of us end up dealing with aging parents. And it's very troublesome and sometimes it can become very stressful. Just like for parents, it's very stressful to try to raise children. It is a cycle and it's an important cycle. Joy, can you start off by sharing this beautiful poem that you dedicated to your mom that would help us understand a little bit about who Joy Wright is, and then we'll talk a little bit about your background?
Okay. This is called Poems for Mama She'll Never Hear. 1. Curled in a scented, salted bath, knees to my chest, face half emerged, fetal. Candles throw shadowy waves on cold tile walls. I sink deeper. Sodden lids drop closed. I'm you, Mama, in you. Fetal, surrounded by your salted amniotic warmth. Heartbeats drum in the fluid against my ears. And murmurs, moans. The anger's cry of a woman not allowed to choose in tide surrounds me. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. 2. You tried to kill us both. That bitter, snowy New York night, darkest of the year, my form swelling you, near bursting. You tried to kill us both and failed at that, too. The car wouldn't crash through the gates at Jamesville Reservoir, gave up. Horns screaming your desperation, one light shining through the dented gate you entered. Swollen feet crushing the newly fallen snow, racing for resolution and end, quiet. The police found you, banshee screaming against the northern wind, jumping your bursting body on the crusted ice, your puffy, ringless hands smashing against where I grew. When you awoke later, stark hospital fluorescence in your eyes, they say you asked for me. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. 3. I wandered today, my break, to the Salvation Army, looking for sweaters to warm my recent return north, but could not enter. Shoes off, torn stocking feet, her walker blocking the door. Size 42 dresses. I need dresses. The anger reddening her creased face, glaring at the blank faces staring back. I slid by, gulped her smell of urine and cigarettes, her torn brown robe and graying slip. I tried to give her my card, offered help. For what? I just need dresses. Like looking into the eyes of the future, she is defiant as my own mama, never wanting all I am able to give. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. 4. Work. The battered women's shelter. My mind on my own mama, still alone in New York, and though what I do here will never mend a fractured past, never put a smile on my own mama's face. Today I saw one woman's river run free, and her daughters drank their fill. A long way from home.
Thank you, Joy. So much comes to my head when I listen to Joy, and most of it is just how much you've been through and how strong you are.
Thank you.
So we gather from your story that you were born in New York, right?
Yeah, upstate New York, Syracuse.
Okay. You want to talk to us a little bit about your journey from New York to Texas to Chicago, and what led you to the field of work that you do and your dedication to advocate for survivors of all sorts?
Well, sure. That would be hours to do the whole journey. But I grew up in upstate New York. My mom was mentally ill and substance abusing, alcohol and prescription medication, disabled most of my childhood, most of my growing up. And she left for good when I was about 16, and I lived with my dad a while. And I visited her in Texas and ended up living there a year or so. That's what we were talking about on the phone yesterday. But I ended up going to college in Virginia, and I had wanted to do counseling for a living. I studied psychology and then got my master's in counseling. And as many, many other people you find in the counseling, social work, psychology fields, I was trying to understand my own mentally ill mother and a lot of the violence that happened in our family growing up, the violence to my mother, the violence to the kids, the violence by my mother, a lot of those pieces. And when I was working on my master's degree, I volunteered for the local domestic and sexual violence program in town, and the first day I went to that training, I felt like just that 4 hours of training where the talk was about power and power differentials and violence rooted in power, and later branching out and seeing power in all forms of oppression.
And this is in 1990.
1990.
In 1990. So, and you gotta love Joy. She goes to, I'm like, how'd you get to Virginia? And she's like, oh, I went to the beach one summer and I loved it.
Yeah.
And you just decided to stay. So that says a lot about you too, and you were not afraid to move.
No.
Did you ever feel like you were trapped down because of everything that was going down with your mom? Or how did you feel when you were able to just like leave and break out, or were you always still connected?
Yeah, it was all, always there was a pull and almost a pull back and a pull away and figuring out. I think when you have a severely mentally ill parent and there's drugs and alcohol and constant chaos, for me the only way to actually move into any other kind of a life was to move away. I couldn't have lived in the same town as her, I think.
And sorry,
go ahead. And it'd ever be anything but chaos.
And this is really, really important. This is what's called creating a healthy boundary. I think all of us may be in situations at one point or another where we enter a toxic relationship, whether it's in the family or whether it's at work or with a relationship, a romantic relationship. I think that there's this thing where you feel like guilty by like, oh, you have to love me. You're my child. Yeah. Well, you're hurting me, so how can I do that? Yeah. And then you did the really right thing to create this healthy boundary, and you realized that you needed to help yourself. It couldn't always be about mama and when she was going to be high or sober or try to figure that out, or when she was going to decide to try to be a mom or not, or if she ever even got there. But you knew at some point you had to break the cycle. You weren't going to go down the same path, and you went to Virginia and you followed your gut and you healed in 1990, and you empowered so many people. You created so many, I mean, so many outlets for people to also heal. And I know we could talk about this for like ever, but I really want to highlight some of the things that you did in Virginia, like the programs that you developed and the shelters. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that, like the statewide hotline, and what was for you most fulfilling about what you did?
Yeah,
Congratulations, by the way. That's amazing.
I did direct service work for a while when I was in Virginia in shelter, and then I worked for the statewide coalition, Domestic Violence Coalition, and started the statewide hotline.
Statewide hotline.
For domestic violence, so the family violence hotline. And at the time, how we got talking about this, Dulce and I had started out wanting to do counseling, but as I was doing programs, I found that I really loved developing programs, and have really spent most of my career doing program development, but largely in domestic and sexual violence programs. I've also worked for some other types of programs that serve women, children in the community, but I do fundraising now at a domestic and sexual violence program.
And you're still involved. So you, at some point, you were one-on-one, and then you were more effective when you started creating these forms of outlets, different forms of outlets, on a larger scale. And then you come to Chicago, and you're working for a local coalition for the Metropolitan Abuse Women, right?
Yes, it's called the Chicago Metropolitan Battered Women's Network. I worked there about 15 years ago.
And then you also saw a lot of changes develop. So something that I really loved that you said was that right now people are talking about, like, oh, finally they're talking about it. And you said, no, we've been talking about it. You're finally listening.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So I thought that was really special.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that have changed throughout the years as far as like training, like the police training, or for these victims that are, I don't want to call them victims versus survivors, right? These survivors.
Yeah.
What are some of the changes that you've noticed just being involved that have been very positive?
Well, there is a lot more attention to it, to the issues of domestic violence and sexual violence. And people talk about it, and people talk that it happens. People talk about violence that happens to children more, particularly sexual violence that was not talked about as much, I think, when I started this work in 1990, and I was working with kids in shelter that had all been affected. I think there's a lot more talking about it. There is a lot more training for the police, a lot more training for judges and prosecutors. There's a lot more prosecution of domestic violence.
That made me so happy, because as some of you may know, and that's how I got involved with Mujeres Latinas en Acción, is because I'm also a sexual assault awareness advocate, and I volunteer, and I had to go through these trainings, and you learn so much. You know, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn about the laws and the things that you can actually do, and it is extremely empowering. I remember sitting in one of those classes, and when I learned about the police training, I couldn't be happier, because I was raped out of my virginity, and that's really hard for a 16-year-old, extremely hard, when there's a cop battering you. For 3 days, I blamed myself. I didn't even realize that had happened. And my mom didn't know what to do, and my sister's like, what's wrong with you? And I tell my sister what happened. She's like, Dulce, you were raped. I said, I don't like that. No, I wasn't. I don't want to hear that. And you go through this denial. It's almost like when you hear that somebody that you really love dies. It's a process. So when a cop comes and attacks you, it doesn't help the survivor, what ultimately becomes the survivor. So it's these little steps that maybe to the police force may seem burdensome or bothersome, but they make a really big difference. A huge difference. And that's one of the things that I really praise about you, how openly you've come about all of these experiences, because it is talking about it that helps heal. Thank you so much for that. Now, how did you get involved with the Voices and Faces project?
Well, I've been a writer, poet, writer, probably since I was a little bitty girl. I do
Is
a
that
lot
something
of...
that always helped you heal and release as
Yes,
well?
always, always. And I've more recently been doing a lot of storytelling, do storytelling nights, get on a microphone and tell a story. Some of them are funny and some of them are sad, but I think, and a lot of them are both funny and sad.
Sometimes we need to laugh at things
Yeah.
that we can't do anything
Yeah.
about.
Right.
Or we are doing something about, but we can't
Yes.
fix the past, right?
Right.
That's why we do what we do.
So I came across, through my work, the Voices and Faces Project does the Stories We Tell writing workshop. And so to write about your own experiences of violence. So that's what it's a weekend of going and writing and learning how to tell your story. And I took that last October, which was amazing. It was amazing. And this other piece that I'm going to do, I scratched out first in the workshop. And
Is that something that you wrote while you were there?
yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah, my first draft I wrote there. And so the referral from them is how I met Dulce.
Yes.
Yes.
So we had a call out. We got together with Mujeres Latinas en Acción, and we invited survivors. We invited survivors to come share their story through a poetic form, and we also had visual artists, and we all got together and we read poetry. And the organizer from from Voices and Project, she's actually the one that found this. And she said, "Oh my God, this is great. I'm so happy that you're doing this. Do you mind if I share this with my students?" I said, "Absolutely." So we ended up getting more than a handful of their stories, and we were able to tell them even when they were not in Chicago, from all over. And some people, even if they were here, I think that it's hard. It's hard to talk about this. And sometimes it's easier to voice this through poetry or song. And Joy is going to share with us one of the poems that she did perform with us this past weekend that occupies a slideshow. But first, we want to talk about this importance of music. If you can please talk to us about the connection that you have with your mother now and how music has helped connect you.
So my mom is now in, I think I had said she was mentally ill and substance using her whole life, but now she is in late stages of dementia. So for the last maybe 6 years, maybe longer, she has been in a nursing home and has declined. And she's at the point that she sometimes knows me and sometimes doesn't. But the way I connect with her, because she can't really have a conversation anymore, is I bring my guitar and I sing. And she won't remember anything, and yet she can remember the words to Country Roads. I learned all her old songs that she likes.
That's so cool.
And sometimes I'll play the same song over and over again, and she'll sing, and then she'll sing a little more the next time, and a little more the next time. And so that's how I connect with her. I just come, I show up with my guitar, and I sing for a couple hours and play music with her. And this process it's been a very, very difficult process. It's hard to find a space and find a good place for someone that has so many issues, as my mother. For an elderly person with so many issues, but this process of helping take care of her and stay connected has been a process for me to heal, and to heal some pieces with her. And so anyways, that's what my last piece is about.
Oh, God bless you. That's just amazing and super, super, super inspiring. So we want to thank you again for being with us. And you at home, please remember that you can always visit us on our website at sharinghisenergygallery.net. You can always email us, and you can always call us directly. You can also give us a call at 312-738-1060 if you want to join the conversation, although Joy is going to start her poem shortly. And we just really want to thank again everybody that showed up last weekend on Saturday to Souls Rise, our first fundraiser, performance art fundraiser. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words. our first performance art fundraiser at the National Museum of Mexican Art. It was an amazing show.
It was amazing. It was amazing. It was really thrilling to be there. So many young artists. It was
amazing.
singers and rappers and spoken word, and it was fabulous.
Thank you so much. And we also had Eric from Can TV here. Congratulations, Eric. That was a great job. So thank you all again. We want to continue to contribute this. And again, we are looking to raise funds for our own art and education center so we can have workshops, self-esteem workshops, art workshops, music workshops, all of these things that continue to heal and find a common ground between everybody. No matter what your social class, background, age, we all go through these struggles. And it's important that we all talk about them so we don't feel so odd and we can all heal together. That's important. Joy. This beautiful poem that you wrote while you were out with your retreat is called Witness. And this does occupy a slideshow. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're going to end it with her poem. So we'll see you next week with Marina and Kathy Byrne, who has also decided to join us. 2 more artists that we had from Souls Rise so we can reflect and get to know our artists a little bit more. Thank you. Go ahead.
Witness. You were 12, Mom, as the story goes, when you showed your first signs of not being right. You were 12. They say your father left that day because he couldn't live with you. Your fault. You were 12, Mom, and you held up a kitchen chair, threatening to hit him with it. You stood up to your father and he left, but that's not the story. The story was whispered by your mother, my grandmother. You have never told it. Grandma said you caused your father to leave. He couldn't live with a child who threatened him with a kitchen chair. You destroyed your family, she says. You were 12. There are other whispers of your breakdowns, though the word crazy is only implied, never used. Grandma would do anything to be sure you never got any mental health treatment, were never labeled crazy. Yet she blamed you, your outbursts, your anger, for all the losses. You were 12 that day, and you threatened your father with a kitchen chair, and he left forever. You never saw him again. When he died, he left you his taxicab. I, your oldest daughter, was 9 then. Only then did Grandma say she saw him all those years, and so did your brother. It was you he left, but years later he would come and watch you and us, your children, in the park. Grandma said she saw us right before he died. Your children are beautiful, he said, as the story goes. 5 years ago, Mom, you slit your throat with a plastic butter knife, sawing back and forth, back and forth. I was having your furniture replaced and your apartment in the public housing unit for people with mental disabilities fumigated. Bed bugs. I was trying to take care of you, as I always did, but you didn't understand that. I told you, but you didn't remember. You thought they were stealing everything and you wanted to die. It was only then, when you were taken to St. Joe's psych unit and kept inpatient for 4.5 months, that the words mental illness were used. Dementia and a long-standing mental illness. Words like personality disorder, psychosis, depression. I see you, Mom. I bear witness. I know what he did to you. It was done to me, too, and my cousins, my sister, by others. I know, Mom, even if you never let yourself know. He destroyed you. She would not protect you. You never had a chance. I bear witness. I see you, Mom. I hold you accountable for all that you did to us, for blaming me when I was 12 and you slit your wrists, covering me with your blood. I hold you accountable for leaving us for days, for the predatory men that you brought home. But I do not believe that you were responsible. The responsibility lies in the violations in the dark, the secrets held tight, the chair held above your head as you fought to stop him, the fact that no one believed you. The responsibility lies in the systemic destruction of a little girl that happened long before I was ever born. I see you, Mom. I believe you, even if you never believed yourself.